Hi, in this video we're going to paint this pair of trainers in pastel. I've simplified the technique down. I've taken a photo, used Procreate to get rid of the background, and then I've printed the picture out onto pastel paper. This lets you forget about the drawing and allows you to concentrate on blocking in the main dark and light tones, and then finally adding detail to bring the picture together. I find this technique is really useful. Some people may say it's a bit of a cheat, but I think it's a really lovely way of starting out in pastel. If you're hesitant about drawing or you find drawing difficult, why not take a photo and then use it to create a pastel painting? I'm sure Vincent van Gogh, if he'd had an iPad and Procreate, he would have perhaps done the same thing. So I don't see any harm in using this method to create a painting. So on to the first stage, where I show you how to take the background out of the original photo I took of the trainers that we're going to paint in the final stages of this video. So from my iPad, I'm going to choose Procreate. I'm going to create myself a new canvas to the screen size, and then I'm going to import my image. So add, insert a photo, Procreate lets you stretch an image and position it where you want. If I deselect that now, we can see the image of the shoes in the picture. We're going to get rid of the background now, and we're going to do that by clicking on the layer menu, clicking on layer, adding a mask, and then we're going to draw onto the mask layer using black deletes, and using white puts the image back. So we're going to draw over the image. We can use black ink. Black ink gets rid of the background, and if you use white, it brings the background back. So let's pick a brush. I'm going to use the Studio pen. Click on the image, and then the nice thing about Procreate is that you can move the image where you want. So if you want a nice round line, you can do that. You can move it again so that you can do it in the flow. The thing to remember though, let's put this one in, is to make sure that your line joins up. So once you've been around all your image, you take the black and just drop in, and it fills in the image. And then you're left with the outline, which you can print out for our next stage. Here's the finished image from Procreate. I've printed it out onto a piece of pastel paper and taped it down to my drawing board. You can see there's some very clear areas of darker tone and lighter tone, and this is what we're going to concentrate in the first stage of the painting. We're going to use a dark blue pastel to start off with to highlight those dark areas. So starting at the back of the shoe and putting in the dark blue, even over the white at this point, adding in anything where I say there's any dark tone using the dark blue pastel, particularly where the light isn't shining. Moving on to a lighter blue pencil now, I'm putting that to the adjacent to the darker colours, and this will help at the later stages. And finally, a white pastel being used now. I'm moving this pastel about in the direction of the fabric of the shoe to get the form at this stage. I'm not worrying too much about the detail. I am pressing harder where I want lighter areas of white, as there's one particular area where the light is shining on the shoe. Now drawing in the shoelaces, and I'm again pressing quite hard on the pastel and pulling it in the direction of the shoelace. I'm not hesitating to do this, just pulling it across where the shoelace should be. I'm not looking at the image that's printing on the paper at this point. I'm using the reference photo that you've put into the video for you to help me get an idea of where those shoelaces are. And this is quite important. At this point, we're not copying the picture, we're creating a painting. And that's the important thing to remember after you've printed this image out. It's not cheating, it's just a way of creating an image to help you with the drawing, the initial stages. So as you can see now, I'm reaching the end of my blocking in stage. And I'm quite happy with this image. There's some nice dark and light areas, some tonal contrasts in the bottom of the shoe, which is the darkest part. Moving round to the top of the shoe, there's some light coming in, which is hitting on the right shoe as opposed to the left shoe. I've got some nice lines where the fabric edges are. This highlights the bits of the shoe for me. And you can see the shoelaces at this point, but we haven't added any detail. And we'll go back and do that in the final stage of the painting. Again, I love the dark bit on this right hand shoe where there's no light whatsoever, and that's just been done with blue pastel. And there's a little bit of the print still showing through, but don't worry about that. Okay, let's move on to the final stage of this painting. Okay, so the final stage of this painting now. We're going to be using the same colours as I did before, the dark blues, the whites and the light blue. And I'm going to be pressing a little bit harder on the pastel now, really trying to put those tones into the painting. Using the white over the darker shapes to give a sense of form and shadow within the shoe. Highlighting some of the lines so that the tongue becomes the tongue of the shoe, and we can see the back from the front of the shoe. Moving round the picture again, not always concentrating on one area. If I find a piece of light area in another part of the image, then I'll move over to do that. Adding areas where light is hitting the fabric of the shoe, where it bows out from the rest of the shoe. Making it look 3D is what you're attempting to do here. Again, I'm checking back with the reference photo. I'm not using the image that we printed out at the start of this video. This is my interpretation now of the shoe. Adding in some more details and darks now of the little eyelets around the laces, putting some cross hatching in where I need to. And I'm not touching the areas of the painting that I liked from the previous application of pastel. Moving on to the right hand shoe now, just adding the laces in again. One of the laces falls behind the shoe, so that became quite difficult to do. Just following the lines basically, and looking at the image on the reference photo, bringing the laces up to the top of the shoe, adding in the tongue, some detail around the top of the tongue, and making that light area really white now, really pressing the white pastel into the paper, using the blue again to create the highlights on the eyelets, adding a bit of cross hatching, the black for the rubber that goes around the top of the shoe, and then stepping back and just adding some just little fine details now, using a very fine white pastel, highlights really, just to draw the eye around the painting. And this is one of those things you have to step back and judge for yourself. Where do you need to put the pastel to create those highlights and darks? Just looking out for those little details that add to your painting. And here's the finished image. As you can see, I've drawn in a lot of the picture, but I haven't drawn in all the detail, and that's important. Give the viewer something to do. Give them something to think about while they're looking at your image. Don't give them all the details. That's what makes an image interesting. My next video will show you how to do a pastel painting using the blocking in technique, but we won't be printing an image this time. We will be using a transfer of the image onto the paper. Thanks for watching.